The Devils, after the offseason they had, find themselves the favorites to win the Metro at plus 220. The Rangers and Hurricanes, who were the top two teams in the division last year, Rangers defending champs, both of them at plus 270. The Isles at plus 950. Then you got the Penguins at plus 1,000, Capitals at plus 1,800, Flyers at plus 2,000, and the Blue Jackets at plus 15,000. So I'm assuming before we really kick off the discussion, we're not really talking about anybody on the right side to win the division, correct? We are only looking at the left side, probably the top three teams here.
That seems pretty accurate, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? If the Flyers actually had a goalie, I think I would have them a little bit higher on this list. They pretty much were in the final playoff spot for most of the entire season, right? Like last year. So the fact that they did that without Carter Hart in net, and we don't know if he's ever going to play again or what that status is. But, if they had somewhat of a goalie, I feel like they would be a little bit higher.
Yeah, that right side can just be like, just disregard it. It doesn't it doesn't matter. It doesn't, just those teams are. I mean, the Capitals went out and did all these moves as if they're a team that's going to be good. But I think plus 1,800 is still pretty bold.
Now, before we move on to the division contenders, just odds to make the playoffs. The Penguins are yes plus 112, no minus 142. The Capitals would be next on that list there, so let's pull them up. They would be yes plus 190, no minus 250. And then the Flyers, you're looking at yes plus 200, no minus 265. And then finally on the Blue Jackets, if you believe in a good story, plus 1,400 to make the playoffs, minus 6,000 to miss. So any of those, are we considering playoff yes for any of those teams on the right?
No.
Okay.
There are 3 teams coming out of the Metro, and as we saw last year, that is more than enough. The rest of those teams are coming out of the Atlantic. I remember when the Metropolitan Division used to be elite. Like, that's how old I am now. I can't believe what has happened to this division, how the mighty have fallen.
No, there used to be years where the Metro was like borderline lock for 5 teams, and the Atlantic was like, all right, you're lucky to get the 3 you get. And the Devils being the favorite this year, maybe they should have been that third team among the top 3 in the Metro last year. That they had Jack Hughes injury, Timo Meier injury, no goaltending. We've been down the list a million times. Dougie hurt. They really were that third team that Philly just kind of occupied that spot for a while, and then when Hart got his whole deal, it just became wide open for anybody at that point, really, to get it. So now let's move over to the left side of the column, looking at the New York Islanders, plus 950 to win the division. Again, I don't think anybody here is saying Isles to win the division, but looking at their playoff odds, yes, plus 104, no, minus 132. Are they a wild card team, or has the Atlantic kind of become the team where 5 teams get in? I mean, I know we can look at 4 teams pretty much immediately in the Atlantic, so...
The Islanders can cure insomnia because that's how terrible they are to watch. This team is so uneventful. They should probably be on the right side. Like they're not very good. They're built from the back end out, but like if the back end's not doing what it needs to do, then that whole team falls apart because they offensively they have nothing. They are the the wish.com version of like the 2000 Devils, where you played the most boring style of hockey, but the exception is they won championships and made deep playoff runs, whereas the New York Islanders are going to do none of that.
Yeah, and this is where Teflon Lou comes into play here, because he has done nothing to add to this offense and make them better. They're 1 or 2 pieces, and we're talking a totally different team here in the Islanders. They have defense, they have goaltending, but they just don't have enough on offense. And he did really nothing to improve outside of bring in
Anthony Duclair.
Right. Yeah. Outside of bringing him in, that's he's more of a supplemental piece to me than a top tier offensive unit.
The one variable I'll say is Patrick Watt took over early in the season last year. Now he's got his first full offseason with the team, first training camp with the team, all that stuff. That does make a difference sometimes. Not enough to win a division. But I mean, if we're going to say in the Atlantic that Boston, Tampa, Toronto, and Florida, those 4 are all locked in, with one of them getting a wild card spot, that means the Islanders Do we like them better than the Red Wings for that last spot? Better than the Sabres for that last spot? Better than Montreal?
I do.
Yeah,
I do because they have the goalie. They have Sorokin, and I think that goes a long way just for the final spot. I mean, we're not like you said, not talking about division, but for that final spot, I think that's a possibility.
There you go. State of Survival chiming in and agreeing there, echoing. Remember the WA effect, just like Trotz, a new coach can change things. So we will see what happens there at the Islanders. Now let's focus on the division odds here because it's really 3 picks. Nobody's going out on a limb. We have a Ranger fan, we have a Devil fan, and then we have I say indifferent, but he doesn't like the Rangers. So I guess he would, I don't know if he's leaning Devils or Hurricanes, or maybe he's leaning the Rangers. I don't know, but he doesn't want to if he is leaning the Rangers. And I'm going to start with you since it's your team that's the darlings of the offseason addressed, they needed goaltending. They got a goaltending. They needed a good second and third pairing, reliable defenseman to plug in. They added those guys. Luke Hughes is another year older. If Jack Hughes can play, 75 plus games this season, Timo Meier not skating on like 2 stilts, apparently with the injuries he was dealing with, because towards the end of the year he looked better. Are we ready to get ready for a Metropolitan Division banner after this season? Or is that what you're thinking?
When the Devils signed Markstrom, Chris said, now there's no more excuses. And I agree with that 100%. I think this is their division to win. They have the pieces there. If they can stay healthy, I think that they can definitely win this. I don't know about you, but I don't think the Rangers improved upon last season. Neither did the Carolina Hurricanes. So they're either going to be the same as they were last year, which is just enough to make it to the playoffs or possibly win the division. But that's it. I think both teams take a step back. They're getting older. They're not getting younger. So I'm going to be the homer. I know I hate to say it, but I'm going with the Devils. I'm drinking the juice right now.
So it's a red Hawaiian fruit punch in color. That's why it's like the Devil's color. There's got to be some sort of Devil's punch out there somewhere.
Yeah,
that's probably alcoholic. Yeah, if it's Devil's punch.
In there.
We can just agree right now. Plus 270 for the Carolina Hurricanes is quite a line there. That is. Oh, me. That's all. I want somebody to have as much confidence as me as FanDuel has in Carolina, because this is a team with a bottom 6 that just is not very good. Defensively, I think they can figure it out. Who knows how many games you're going to get out of Freddie Anderson, right? So there's so many wild cards there with them. For them to have the same exact odds as the Rangers, okay. I think the New York Rangers will win this division, unfortunately. They, to me, are the better team. They're deeper. Their blue line is deeper as well. Igor Shesterkin is the best goalie in that division. He's probably top 2 in the NHL, behind maybe only Connor Hellebuck. So they have an edge in every single part of their lineup. I don't think the Devils have a better offense than the Rangers. I don't think the Devils are better defensively than the Rangers. I don't think the Devils have a better goalie than the Rangers. So it may not be by much. I think those odds are fair to be close. I would probably switch them, right? I could see the Rangers being plus 220 and then the Devils being plus 270. I think that would make a little bit more sense, but I could it's a 2-horse race in my mind. So I just think the Rangers have kind of been there, done that. So why would they not be able to do it again, right?
See, now I see a problem with that in the fact that the more they don't win this, the more pressure is being put on this same group in New York to get this thing done. And at some point, the bubble's going to burst. I don't know if it's this year. I'm not going to say it's this year. I think it does come down to Rangers Devils in the end, because what you mentioned with Carolina, who knows if Freddie Anderson can stay healthy? We haven't seen it from him. And so I think it does come down to Rangers Devils. And obviously I'm going to take the Devils, and I'm pretty sure Adam's going to take the Rangers.
Well, before I give my take on the division, I am putting the link to the draft in the comments there, boys. So we're going to start our mock draft in about 8 minutes. So get your spot. I'm already claiming the 10th spot. I love that turn. helps me to host and be able to just make my picks and go back. So let's get you fellas signed up. I'm going to tweet that out now as well. But before I give my take here on the team, let's just talk about the Hurricanes first. They are solidly a playoff team. I don't expect like a massive step back or anything like that. They're built more like a playoff team than they are a team to deal with the grind of the regular season. They're going to be a tough team to play against. But yeah, I think they're a playoff team, but I do not have them really in the division for the division race right now. I do think their odds should be slightly less than the Rangers, but it is what it is. The Devils and the Rangers, I think we're going to be seeing those two teams jockey for a position down the stretch. The Rangers are still the same team, mostly no Barclay Gaudreau. They bring in Riley Smith to try and address that top line right wing spot. So they're still, to me, the Devils still have to take, you have to beat the champ, you got to beat the champ. To be the champ, you got to beat the champ, I should say. The Devils, if they stay healthy, though, they could really be a juggernaut. So if you get a really healthy season out of New Jersey, I would lean the Devils. But if they deal with any sort of injury, even like Jack Hughes gone for a few games here, a few games there, they have the depth to withstand that now. But I think that race is going to be real close, so they can't really afford to lose too much ground. I'm going to be a homer. I'm going to pick the Rangers, but I think they're going to be looking at the Devils all the way down to the last game of the regular season.
I mean, isn't this what we want in the Metro, really, though? We want Rangers, Devils at the top, fighting for that division lead. There's no other way I would expect it or want it.
I mean, that rivalry has not, mattered. It's had its moments where it's, come back a little bit, but it hasn't really had that sizzle that, it had when we were younger. And, it would be nice for that rivalry to come back and really just be full blown, hate, I hate to use the word hate, but, the Hudson River rivalry could use a little gasoline thrown on it. And maybe this is the season where that brings it back.
So what you got Remke for?
So we got Rempe for, that's right. But we'll see, and that's a guy you mentioned that, okay, we'll see how he's going to, last year they didn't want to play him in the playoffs because they didn't trust him both ways. Okay, we saw the videos of him working with George Laraque and his fighting in the offseason. Now let's see what he can contribute with significant fourth line minutes. He's going to get those this year. You can't hide him again. You can't do that again. You can't play those kind of limited minutes with him. But, and Carolina is also a very well-coached team. I want to go back to the Hurricanes for a minute. Again, it's not a disrespect. It's not that they're going to take a big step back. It's just, I think there's a top tier in the Metro, which is the Devils and the Rangers, and they're in that second tier by themselves. So they're the 3 seed. I think we all agree they are the 3 seed this year out of the Metro.
Are we done with Carolina being that because they got Rod Brindamore, this is the Stanley? Is that done with? Has that ship sailed?
I don't think per se that it's sailed. I just think he's going to have to squeeze a lot of juice out of that team because they are very, you could tell the difference between a second and third line here. And their second line probably could use a winger on the left side, unless one of the kids breaks out and has a great year. But, Svechnikov was hurt a little bit. Yes, they signed Jarvis, and, defensively, I think they should be good. It shouldn't be a problem. But again, what are you getting out of Freddie Anderson? I don't think this is a poorly coached team. I think they will play well. It's just how much can you get out of certain players? You can't. Freddie Anderson is a glass house. He's going to fall apart. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And then how good is your goaltending backup at that point? And then how much can this defense support? Brent Burns is old now. There's only so much, and how much can you run Jacob Slavin out there? And, yes, you brought in Shane Gostisbehere and stuff like that to help bolster it. Sean Walker's in town as well. I think they'll be fine. That third spot is theirs. All they got to do is just not lose it. And that should be pretty easy considering all the teams behind them. But I think there will be a significant gap between the Carolina Hurricanes and whoever finishes 1-2. And by that standard, then the Carolina's going to get the unfortunate matchup of either having to play the Devils or the Rangers in the first round. And they're not getting past either of those teams. So I just feel like they're through no fault of their own, they're stuck. And this team just doesn't have enough, they don't have enough oomph offensively to make it matter.
State Survivor wondering if Jarvis will play in the top 3 or if Svech will take that spot. I mean, Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis is probably, the Daily Faceoff has that as the top line right now, but you probably need to split that up a little bit to increase your depth there. I think you might have to move probably Svechnikov. I don't know. I mean, Rod Brindamore is going to earn his contract extension. That's for sure. He's going to have to. If they do well this year, he's going to be up for the Jack Adams for sure.
I would move Svech off that line. He can hit, he can throw his weight around. He's a good overall player. And I think he can help out somebody like Martin Necas. Jesperi Kotkaniemi is, second line center apparently. Like he can be the catalyst for that line, kind of like stir the drink a little bit. So whereas like Aho's still going to get those tough matchups per se, I don't think Kotkaniemi is going to be counted on to like shut down the opposing team's best players. It's definitely not Jordan Staal. Like he's aging here. So I think what'll happen is Aho's still going to get some good matches, but you got to split up a little bit of those lines. You got to make it difficult for teams. You can't just have all those eggs in one basket. And I think Svechnikov is the player who can do a lot more on different lines. He can have success, or at least I feel, on multiple lines, whereas I don't think that's the same thing for Jarvis.
Yeah, I would keep Aho and Jarvis together, and then because Svechnikov, because Aho can do a lot by himself. Svechnikov also can on the right line. Might be a little too top heavy there, so I would agree. I would probably move Svechnikov down. I mean, they're all going to be on that top power play at it for sure. Or I mean, there's Necas to their top power play right now is looking like Necas at center with Svechnikov, Jarvis, Aho on the point, and Burns. Good top unit, but that second power play unit. I don't even know if I'd want to play them for 20 to 30 seconds of a power play.
It's going to be one of those years for the Carolina Hurricanes. I know you guys don't want to hear it, but it is what it is. Don't look at that team. Be realistic. Put on your regular glasses, the ones that you can read with, and look at that lineup and the depth that's missing from it. That bottom six it's not it, man. It's not good.
No, it's all right. So there we go. So Metropolitan Division odds, we go through those. We agree that it's basically it's a two-man race for the division. Three of those teams, Rangers, Devils, Hurricanes, definitely in the playoffs. Islanders in the mix for that fourth spot and a wild card spot. We think they probably get it, but obviously a long season to go. We got to see how Washington meshes. We got to see if Pittsburgh actually decides to have some sort of coherence to their game this season.